Welcome everyone to this episode of the Mortgages by Gretchen show. And I talk to real people in the field of real estate and business who are not only experts, but they are very generous and willing to give their time and knowledge to us here today so we can all benefit. And the goal of the show is for you to gain some information and some tips, and this will help you reach your goals in real estate and business, and also to take some of the guesswork out of what to do or who to call if you have need for some help or additional assistance. And today I have Bianca Del Bois with me, and Bianca is the digital marketing assistant and event coordinator for the Windrose Group. And that is the Mortgage Alliance team that I am very grateful to be a part of. So I benefit from Bianca's great work. And Bianca creates really great marketing materials for our team. She helps us with our social media and our planning, our creating our events, and personal in-person events, as well as our online at this time during COVID. I've known Bianca since she joined the team about a year.
January of last year. It's been a year.
Okay, a year. And she creates very beautiful work, and I'm just grateful to be able to work with her.
I'm happy.
So thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Bianca, and if you want to give your own introduction of yourself and what you're all about, I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, for sure. So I've been in marketing for going on 5 years now. So I've been in the field for a while. I've seen all the changes and try to stay up to date with all of the things because they change so often. I have a dog rescue that I do outside of my work. It's a charity. It just got registered charity status the end of last year. So I work on that a lot as well outside of work. And I stay very up to date with all of the marketing things and all of the things happening in animal welfare. Those are like my two jobs basically. So so I spend a lot of time doing both of those, and I really enjoy both. I really like marketing. It's not like I like to learn new things and stay up to date in the field, and I'm always doing continuing education and things like that. So I don't really think of it as a job because I really enjoy doing it. So yeah.
And that shows through your passion and your love what you do. So excellent. So I'm going to ask you some questions. What is the best form of marketing for small businesses, for small business owners, in order to reach out to their customers?
Yeah, for sure. So social media marketing is huge for small businesses. I think that's more specifically a content marketing approach is the best way to go. So what I mean by that, it's one thing to be on social media and to be posting and coming up with content that looks good, but content marketing itself is actually creating educational content that would be beneficial for the business's audience, essentially something that's going to help their audience learn something or gain some new information. It helps build trust with the business and then with the audience as well. So content marketing is very specific to a certain type of audience. So, for you as a mortgage agent, the content that you'll be putting out there is, for example, maybe helping first-time home buyers understand all the terminology or what they have to do to start the journey on buying a home and things like that. So by providing this free information and this free education, essentially, you're building a good relationship with your audience before they reach out to you. So getting on social media is the first step, and then really creating and fine-tuning a content marketing approach that works for the audience is the next big step, I'd say.
So a question I have, a new one that I just thought of is, so if someone is working on the content marketing and they're considering either using an outside source or working with someone, and that person, obviously, they're not a mortgage agent. So how's the best way to communicate information to that person? So you have good content, but you're not, you're still limiting your amount of time to be involved in this media from the point of view of the business owner.
Right. So when you're outsourcing for someone to come in and help you with this, for sure, having interviews with people and seeing kind of what their experience is with other companies is a great first step, because if you are taking someone on, they should be able to obviously there's that learning curve with if you're learning any new industry, if you're someone in my position that's doing, like freelance work or something like that, or contracted work, but they should be able to demonstrate that they have a high level of skill in the way of research, so that they can kind of research your business, research who your audience would be based on discussions with you, and then they should be able to provide you with kind of examples of what kinds of things they're going to do to help you in your business, and how they're going to structure and build content that's going to be relevant for your audience. So whoever you're picking to come on and do that contracted work should demonstrate, a high level of the research skill and like a good copywriting skill, and they should be able to identify your audience with you, and then they should be able to do that so that you don't have to focus as much on that. Of course, the first few weeks, I'd say with any contractor or anyone that you're outsourcing to do this job, there's that learning curve, and you'll have to be a little bit more hands-on, but then you should be able to kind of let them run with it, and they should be producing good quality content that's going to be relevant for your audience, that you're just kind of reviewing and approving, but they're coming up with it themselves, and it should work that way. If you're kind of getting someone that's a little less experienced, they might be asking more questions, or they might be emailing you more, or trying to contact you more, not really sure of what they're doing. So I'd say going with someone with a bit more experience, someone who's worked with other businesses before, not just one specific business, is the way to go.
That makes complete sense. I love that. Never would have actually thought of that. They need to be a good researcher, or very experienced, or both.
Yeah.
Awesome. So is the social media strategy different if you want to reach out to a referral partner? So like in my case, I work with realtors and financial advisors, versus when you're reaching out to that end user customer who's going to be buying or using your product or service. How would you change your strategy for those two different types of people you're trying to reach?
Yeah, for sure. So for referral partners, it's important to do almost the same approach, but what is the benefit to them working with you? So how are you going to benefit their business? So making sure that you can highlight that in some way. It may not necessarily just be on social media, but through email marketing, for example. The Windrose Group has a realtor initiative, and we stay in contact with our realtor partners, and we provide email content, and those emails, it's content that's very exclusive to that list and very beneficial to that list. So thinking of maybe fine-tuning some strategies outside of social media, such as email marketing, or maybe not direct mail, but email marketing, and there's other things like hosting webinars or live events, and including those partners, and seeing, if that approach on a recurring basis helps them to maybe reach a broader audience. You're cross-promoting on your platforms, and they're cross-promoting on theirs. So that kind of partnership might be very beneficial. But it has to be something that's going to benefit them as well, of course, and then also benefit you. So just kind of thinking a little bit outside of the box there, and what kinds of exclusivity that you can offer them is very helpful, I'd say, when you're trying to reach out and trying to form those partnerships and make lasting partnerships with referral partners.
Sense. And what about if you are using social media? Would you do it where would you do your posts to attract your referral partners, or how would you change the post versus the customer?
I would probably use the story feature on Instagram and Facebook, but I'd say Instagram for sure if you're making posts on it, on that platform, because you can pin those to your highlights on Instagram. There's a thing called highlights, so it's the little circles that stay at the top, so people can go back and review stories. That would be a good place to post for referral partners, because you can actually make them their own highlight. So something that says realtors, and then you make stories maybe once a week or something like that, and then you can pin it there so they can keep going back to it. Another thing is LinkedIn for referral partners. Obviously, that's LinkedIn has millions of professionals on there. It's a really good place to do your kind of a marketing and a different approach there. Making actual posts on LinkedIn on, say, your business page is totally acceptable and totally a best practice, I'd say, if you're trying to reach out to them. But then also the in-mail feature, reaching out to them and kind of just almost like a form of networking, but you just go right into their inbox and you you talk to them directly and you say, this is what I'm thinking. If it is a webinar that you're going to go with, I have this idea to do this recurring webinar or this recurring live event, and I'd love to have you as a partner, just to come on and speak about this. This is the content that I have. How do you feel about that? And then you can kind of form those partnerships and go from there. So I'd say, yeah, the story feature on Instagram, LinkedIn posts, or InMail are really a good way to go.
That's awesome. And in LinkedIn, so I've always had one LinkedIn page under Gretchen Casey / Mortgages by Gretchen. But now I've, I guess mostly kind of on your suggestion, having a business page on LinkedIn. So now that I'm doing that, my question is, so which one do I post on? And do I post on both? Or if I don't, how do I make that decision?
I would say so you post on the business page, and then what we do is post on the business page and then reshare to your personal page. Obviously, you have a lot of connections on your personal page, and the idea is to drive traffic to your business page. So making the business-centric posts on the business page, you'll have your whole marketing plans and approach, so you'll know what to post, and then resharing it to your LinkedIn page is great. And then using your personal page as more of like a personal, you're not going to post super personal information on LinkedIn. It's a professional page, but a lot of people are going that way these days because it kind of humanizes the person behind that, the corporate profile. There's a lot of people that post achievements, professional achievements, but also life milestones on LinkedIn, on their personal page. And that's not something that you would post on your business page on LinkedIn by any means, but you post that on your personal and reshare more of those business things, more of the business content to your personal page to get more traffic, I'd say. Perfect.
That makes complete sense. Mm-hmm. So now that we have a lot of online things because of COVID and we can't really go in person right now, how should you change your marketing presentation? So if you're doing a webinar, for example, for being online versus what you would have done in person, are there some specific suggestions about that?
I'd say making sure that you just fine tune that presentation so that it's a little bit more engaging. In person, it can be maybe just more informative because you're actually engaging with people in real life. So you can gauge people's reactions. You can see what they're doing. You can ask questions while you're there, and it's a lot different. So when you're doing it and it's just online, I'd say making sure that there's enough slides and there's enough breaks where you can kind of ask questions. You can see how people are doing. You can check in, maybe adding some discussion prompts or adding, some different areas where there's maybe some work that they have to do so that they're a little bit more engaged in the presentation. If you're asking them a question, you're like, what are 3 things that you've had to do based on that kind of thing? And then people can write that in the chat portion, or they can unmute themselves and chat with you, however you decide to host the webinar. But definitely making sure that there's room for engagement is really, really important now that everything's digital. So you can make sure you really have people's attention, but that also they feel like they're engaging with you during the presentation.
That's a great idea, because then you don't have them partway through disengaging, especially if it's in an evening. Yeah. Sometimes giving that incentive for someone to stay there in front of that computer instead of just going off and doing something else.
Yeah. And on the note of having incentive, if you have, a worksheet or something that you've created, even if it's just a 1-page PDF file, and you're like, you're going to get this sheet when you attend, you're going to get this checklist, this home buyer's checklist, or you're going to get, so offering some sort of thing for them to incentivize basically their attendance is also a really great idea. Something that we do with a lot of the Windrose Group presentations.
Yeah, and I like the idea. Maybe even saying you'll give them the link or the document if they attend live, so that they don't say, "Oh yeah, I'll watch it later." Which I know for myself, a lot of times I don't create that time to watch something later. So that's a good idea. Awesome. I'm going to be rewatching this when I create my next stuff. This is great. Okay, so what are a couple of tips for those who really feel their marketing is lacking? They're kind of lost. Okay, how do I get back on track? Where do I start? What would you say?
I would say getting into the habit of pre-planning. So there are a lot of different softwares out there for social media, like Hootsuite, Loomly, Planoly, that you can go in and batch content and really plan a lot of content and get the pre-work out of the way so you don't need to worry about it. Because I find that a lot of the times people fall off because things are very consistent for a while and then they just get really busy and then they just forget about it. And social media is such a crucial aspect to any business, especially small businesses, that if you just go in and you plan and get a lot of content batched and ready to go, you can schedule those posts to go out once a week. You don't need to be posting every day. So you could do like once or twice a week, but at least if you have so much content planned, you can have that scheduled and going in the background while you can focus on your business. And then you just have to revisit it to continue to like, pump some more content in there and get a lot more content batched so it keeps going. But I'd say if you can just get pre-planning and pre-work out of the way, even though it'll be really time consuming for maybe a day or two, it'll help you in the long run, because then it'll stay consistent and it'll keep running like a well-oiled machine while you can focus on, the deals and the other things that you need to do in real life outside of like in your business, outside of social media. So yeah, I'd say the biggest piece of advice is to really just pre-plan and get pre-work out of the way so you don't need to worry about it long term.
Okay. And what about, you mentioned the email marketing campaigns. Do you have a specific, do you just create your own spreadsheet, or do you have a program that you use to sort of create those email campaigns or drips or journeys?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for email, it's different. There's so many different, I've worked in Campaign Monitor and in MailChimp. So like I am very big on pre-work on email marketing as well. So I batch a few different email campaigns so that they're done and pre-approved and then scheduled ahead of time. So
you mentioned Campaign Monitor, which I know is in Salesforce, and then MailChimp as well.
MailChimp, yeah, MailChimp's its own external, like its own website, but it's one of the most popular email marketing services. So typically when people have websites built on like Squarespace or WordPress or different types of website hosting platforms, MailChimp is almost always one of the things that's built in so that you can, when you put an opt-in on your website, so for people to put in their email information, it'll link directly to MailChimp and automatically subscribe them to your list. So it's one of those really, really, it's a very popular service, very easy to use. It's kind of like a drag and drop email marketing service. You can make really, really nicely designed campaigns on there. But I'm a big advocate for doing the pre-work on email marketing as well and getting campaigns batched and approved so that those can also be scheduled and not something that I have to worry about on a weekly basis.
Yeah, it's not nagging on you daily. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, I got to get that done.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Okay. So is it important for business owners, such as realtors, financial advisors, mortgage agents, to have their own website aside from the company's website that's created for them?
Yeah, so I would say yes and no. I think if you're just starting out and everything's overwhelming at first, and at that, like I'd say starting out, having at least a landing page or somewhere where you can capture people's information or has maybe a little bit of information about you is good. But I think really honing in on social media at first to really build a good audience, to get your content out there and to start, getting the hang of posting, informative information for people is a really good start. And then from there, building a website, maybe that's just, again, a landing page, an about section, the services that you offer and a contact us is just fine. Because from there you can really build it out. You can eventually have a blog section. You can post more content on there as well. You can really drive traffic to the website so people can read more about you and get more information about you and contact you. But social media is a huge, it's a big component because that's where you're really building an audience and a community and engaging with people. And then, the website is kind of the end goal because they're just going to the website for maybe a little bit more information about your services. And then they're contacting you either through social media or through your website. So of course, it's really important to have. It's really important to have one so that when people Google you, they can find a website for you because it builds trust again. Like if people can't find a website these days, they're kind of like, who is this person? But I'd say social media, having a good social media presence and then working into a website is the way to go.
And a quick question on that. So at one point, a long time ago, I had a website of my own, and there was a comment section or contact section, and a lot of spamming was coming in, and I was spending a lot of time trying to manage that. And I just basically ended up just giving up and closing down the website. Is there a way to avoid that, or is that something you have to figure out with whoever creates it, or how do you manage that?
Yeah, a lot of websites now have the CAPTCHA in it, so you can't get, like, it filters out a lot of spam. There might be the occasional person that's puts their information in and is manually trying to reach out to sell a service, but a lot of them now have the CAPTCHA built in so that it gets rid of the spam and the bots. And then if someone is creating and developing your website as well, they can definitely help with that by adding extra security features. But a lot of the drag and drop websites these days, like if on Squarespace or Wix or whatever, if you're building your own kind of thing, have CAPTCHA included in contact forms so that it filters out a ton of the spam.
Perfect. Very important. Okay, so is it important to have a niche in your business if you're, have your own business, and to speak to that niche versus just, hey, I want everybody's business?
So with having a niche, like, I think that there's a lot of pressure that people put on themselves sometimes to niche into something, which I don't recommend. Like, I think that if it comes naturally to you, if there is a niche market that you find that you're working really well with, that you're getting a ton of those specific clients, and it's working really well for you and you really enjoy it, then at that point, fine tuning your content to just specifically market to that person is the way to go. Obviously, if you work really well with a specific market and things are going well and you love it, they love it, you're finding that it's just a very, very effortless and very natural thing, then that's good. I think that there's no pressure to find a specific niche. Like, people shouldn't feel the pressure to specifically tailor to one audience. But if you do have one, great, that's good. The other thing is, there is something called an ideal client avatar and finding your ideal customer. And that's completely different than a niche market, because you might have more than one ideal customer. So for example, the Windrose Group has, several different target audiences, and we tailor to, 3 or 4 of them. But that doesn't mean that that's just our niche. Like, we work with different people. So there's different ideal clients in different markets. But that doesn't mean that we just niche down to one thing. That just means that we're talking to different people in different ways, just to reach out to them, to make sure that we're providing information for them that they want, that they need, and then that's helpful for them, and that eventually, they reach out to us for more information. Having a niche market is more so like, I just work with real estate investors and I do a great job at it, and this is what I can do for you. But, no pressure on finding a niche at all. And that's a big thing. I find a lot of people ask, like, how do I pick, what I'm going to niche into? And it's just like, whatever comes naturally to you, that should become your niche. And then you'll learn how to speak to them. And if you're already doing business so well with them, then there's no pressure, because you already know that what you're doing is working. It's just kind of like, fine tuning that. So
I love that. It's like, don't put so much pressure on yourself that you have to do this one thing this way. So that's awesome. And what's your suggestions on branding?
So branding is like hugely important for businesses, especially small businesses. And I'd say if you don't have a brand, going into the basics of creating like a brand board for yourself is one really key piece of advice. And so a brand board, you can use all kinds of things to make it, but there's a website called Canva that's a free web-based design program. You can go and make a brand board in Canva, and basically all a brand board includes is your color scheme, fonts that you'll use, and maybe some imagery that describes your business, or has the feel of your business. And the reason that you put together a brand board is so that any sort of pieces that you put out online, any sort of designs that you put out, or communications or anything like that, you can reference your brand board and always use the same fonts and always use that same color scheme. So people build up an association with your brand. They're like, they always see the same colors, they always see the same fonts, they're always kind of seeing the same tone of the images and things like that, so that people can really associate you with you and your brand. So that it's not like one day you're putting out this communication piece that has bright orange and black writing, and then 2 weeks later it's pink and blue, and it's all changing. You want to stay very consistent with your branding so that people it resonates with people, for one, and then people can really start to remember that. Of course, your brand goes far beyond colors and fonts. Like your brand becomes the information that you put out there, how you speak to people, how you help people, and then people really start to associate your brand with those qualities as well, not just colors and fonts. But the starting point is definitely creating a brand board and having a very consistent image, and then, you know, going from there.
Yeah, I really like something you said recently in a meeting about how your brand, it's also kind of how you make them feel, and what they associate with you and your brand. So
Yeah.
I think, I don't remember if you gave the example of Nike or Apple or one of those, where maybe talk about what you'd said about that, because it was really important.
Yeah. So when you think of brands like Nike, you know, Nike is a really good example because it started as a, you know, an athletic company, but you don't just think of running shoes. Like you actually think of their whole, like a whole lifestyle. You think of, you know, the breaking kind of records or setting goals. Like it's a very like an emotional experience. When you think of Nike, there's more of a customer experience with them. It's not just about shoes or that they sell clothing. Like it goes far beyond that. You know, another really good example I had read actually in a book was Kodak. Kodak was a whole experience, like had the Kodak moment, and, you know, getting people together, and there was a whole thing behind
just got
that.
chill when you said that.
Yeah, like Kodak was more than just a camera company. So think a brand is kind of what people associate, what they feel, and what they think about when they think of you and your brand, and it goes far beyond, you know, colors or the service that you're offering. There's more to it. So starting with something as simple as a brand board will get you there, but you need to start there, and you need to have a consistent and cohesive look and feel before you get to that.
Perfect. I'm sure all of us are doing a lot about video marketing, that we need to do videos. And for those of us like myself who are slowly tiptoeing into it, but starting to embrace it, for anyone who's not yet doing it or is just starting, what's the best place to start?
So I'd say for sure, short videos, like you don't need to do anything crazy. I'd say, again, Instagram is a great place because you can do stories that only last 15 seconds. I mean, of course you can record more, but it just goes into several different stories. But you could do a quick 15-second check-in on Instagram, like, hey, we're starting the day and here's a quick behind the scenes of this, and you're posting in your story. And then those stories you can either pin them so they stay, or they can disappear, but it still counts as video marketing. Like it still counts as video content. So starting with maybe something like that to get a little bit more comfortable, then maybe working into actually recording videos that you post on Facebook or on LinkedIn or on Instagram on your feed that are just a minute in length or less, but something that's like a tip for your audience. You know, I'm just going to give you a buyer's tip today on Tuesday, and here it is. And it's just again, less than a minute of information, and you post it on your feed, and that's where it lives, and people can go back and see that, or they can comment on it, or they can engage with you on there. They can ask more questions. So I'd say starting on social media and just going with like a 15-second story and working into a minute-long video, and then maybe from there you start doing webinars more often, is a really great way. Because video content doesn't need to just live on social media. It counts as webinars, it counts as podcasts, and like what you're doing now is video content. And so, you know, you've been doing it for a while, you're doing really great at it. I don't think you're tiptoeing around it anymore at all. You're doing a great job. So starting with something like social and working into something like this is a great option.
Okay. And is there any area, just thought came to my head, stuff like TikTok, or is there something that, you know, if you're not doing anything, you maybe don't necessarily have to start there. But if you're already, so like myself, I'm in Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, should I be considering TikTok or something else that is up and coming or big, or maybe a great opportunity?
I would say focus on the things that you're doing and do a really good job at it before going into things like that. TikTok is a whole new animal on social media, and TikTok is very you can certainly reach your demographic, but I think it's important to think about who your demographic is, and if they're not on an app like TikTok, then not to worry about it. It can get really like you can quickly fall into like, oh, I should be there because everyone's on it. And I know that that's something that people get very caught up in, but think about where your demographic lives, talk to them there, and also just really put a lot of focus on doing a really good job at 1 or 2 social media platforms. And then once you know that you're killing it there and you're doing an amazing job and you're getting tons of business and things are going well, then start thinking about branching into, maybe a different area.
Okay.
But
And
stick to what's working first.
Okay. And actually, one more question about podcasts. So I have a lot of content for my videos, which I am planning to turn into podcasts just because I've got the data. Any comments specifically about podcasts versus other things?
No, podcasting is great. Podcasting is awesome. You can do very similar to, the Gretchen Casey show. It's just audio. You can have guests. You can do episodes where you're just by yourself and you don't have guests. Like, it's very versatile. Podcasts also get released in seasons a lot of the time. So you can pre-record, again, going back to that pre-work and batching content, you can batch 10 episodes in, a few days. And then you can make sure that they're all edited, they're all good to go. You can really work on the marketing of the podcast and work on the behind the scenes stuff. And then you can release those once a week and you can release a whole season and you've got that out of the way, kind of thing. So podcasts are great in that sense because you can get a lot of work done ahead of time and then really work on promoting that on social media and promoting it online to make sure that you get good downloads and good listeners. And podcasts are, there's so many millions and millions and millions of listeners to podcasts. It's very popular. I personally listen to certain business podcasts while I'm working throughout the day a lot, and music, but mostly podcasts. So it's something that people really subscribe to, and it's very popular, and I don't see that losing momentum anytime soon. So definitely a good place to go, and it's a really good creative outlet for sure.
Okay, awesome. What is one last piece of advice you have for Canadians right now?
I'd say just if it's not, if I'm not thinking business related, I'd say just to make sure that you're making time to for yourself, especially with COVID, and it's really insane. And a lot of us are working from home, and it's really hard to separate your work life and your personal life. So I think making sure that you've set time aside for yourself and get yourself a good morning and evening routine and really stick to it and really give yourself time to relax and to get in the zone with self-care and just, writing down your goals and you're getting journaling done, and make sure that you have time for all of that because it's really hard to separate that. I know personally, I love being at home for a lot of reasons and working at home for a ton of reasons, but I did find there was a stretch of time where I was like just working from morning till night. So I'm like, oh, I can do this now because I'm sitting here. But I've really set a good morning routine for myself, and I don't look at my phone or emails for an hour every single morning. And I make sure that I journal and have my coffee and take my dog out and do all that stuff before I get into my day. And I do the same thing at night when I unplug and stop checking my phone and stop doing all that. So that'd probably be my biggest piece of advice for Canadians everywhere, if you're working from home or not, is just make time for yourself.
I think that's great. That's awesome. And thank you so much for all of your ideas, your input, your suggestions. It's very, very valuable. And I've learned a lot. So I am definitely going to rewatch this a number of times to make sure I don't forget all this great stuff. So thank you, Bianca. And thanks for all you do for myself and for the Windrose Group team as well. And for all these listeners.
Thank you for having me. It was great being here. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Bye.
Bye.